So, Trev, the final part of today's show, we are going to talk about game wreckers. And we've talked a lot about them already. People know why they're important. And I think in this matchup, it's going to be every bit as important, if not even more so than for Notre Dame than on the offensive side of the ball. Because I think on this side of the ball, I do think the talent gap is a little bit more narrow in this matchup than when we talk about the Notre Dame offense against the Indiana defense. I think this is the side where Indiana has to, again, they don't have an elite receiving core, but Elijah Surratt can hurt you. Omar Cooper can hurt you. Keyshawn Williams can hurt you. Miles Cross can hurt you. Miles Price can hurt you. There's a closer talent gap, in my opinion, between the tackles for Indiana and the edge players for Notre Dame than there is on the other side of the ball when you look at the Notre Dame tackles against the Indiana edge players. I think there's a very similar talent edge there. You know what I mean? And I think Notre Dame has the better talent. Here it's like, okay, is RJ Open a better player right now than the tackles of Indiana? I think that's a little bit more debatable at this point in time, outside of, early Bryce Young and sometimes Josh Burnham against the run. So those are the things you look at, man. And you look at this matchup and you say, hey, listen, game wrecker is going to be important. We talked a little bit about it earlier. Can the D tackle step up and make plays where, look, this is the kind of game where you're like, whew, boy, I'm glad they got that sack because the safety at Notre Dame got beat on that post route, but he couldn't get the ball off because that's where games like this are where that matters. Yeah. Because, hey, boy, and we see that in teams that aren't able to make those plays and play that great football aren't going to be that way. So you're going to have your dudes. You said it earlier, Trev, your dudes are going to have to be dudes.
Dudes got to be dudes. Have to. And I mean, that's just in moments like this. And I said it yesterday, you need your big players to step up, that's why they were voted a captain. That's why you know what I mean? So it's game wreckers is going to be huge. And it will be if Notre Dame makes a playoff run. It will be if Indiana makes a playoff run. Right. So yeah, game wreckers, man, let's get into it.
So first of all, we look at the other team. You can't let Elijah Surratt go off. You can't let Omar Cooper be a big play weapon. You can't let their running backs make a lot of yards after contact in the throwing game and the running game. You can't let their slot receivers have a lot of yards after contact in the throwing game and the screen game. It's the perimeter, especially the perimeter is really where it's at, but the perimeter and the backs, you can't let those guys, if they catch the ball at 5, they're getting 5. If they catch the ball at 7, they're getting 7. If you have your gap secured, then they're getting nothing in the run game. So guess what? Don't lose gaps. But when you get that play at the line of scrimmage, make it. And that's going to be a big part. So you can't let their pass catchers especially be game wreckers in this game. That's going to be a big key for the Notre Dame defense. So let's talk a little bit about the Notre Dame game wreckers, Trevor. And we'll give 2 guys each. We're going to start off on defense. And let you go. Whoa, we're not going to start off on defense. We're only going to talk about the defense. We're going to let you start off on the defensive conversation. Give me your first game wrecker. And this is more what we're doing here. This is more kind of for fun. We're predicting it, who we think the game wreckers are going to be. Obviously, if Trevor and I knew exactly what was going to happen, we would be working for fun, not for livelihood, because we would have made some bets and we would both be, multimillionaires. But this is looking at film, breaking down matchups, knowing what's important, but then also having a little bit of fun with it and predicting who we think are going to be game wreckers, why we think they're going to be game wreckers, and what we think the impact of that happening would be in this game. So I'll let you start off.
Yeah, so my first game wrecker, I have Howard Cross. And, you could tell that the Notre Dame pass rush in the USC game missed him. And, he took the time to come back and play healthy. When I look at this matchup specifically, Indiana's offensive line.
You were asking if my hat's black.
I saw.
It's not. It's navy blue.
I saw.
So, yeah.
Sorry, Brian's trying to make a statement.
I did that, Trev. It's navy blue. Navy blue.
At first, I was like, if you don't want to look at me, I could just turn my camera off.
Well, it does. Right. Well, unfortunately, I can't. That doesn't really do much because I can still see your thing. So
true.
It's covering myself up. I apologize, Trevor. Please continue.
No, you were all right, my man. So Howard Cross is going to be my game wrecker. Look, Indiana's offensive line struggles with more athletic defensive line. And when I go through and I look at this matchup, I think a guy like Riley Mills matches up relatively decent with what the Indiana offensive line likes to do. If it becomes a game of who's stronger, who's going to get pushed around, I think you could split hairs and call it even. Like I've watched plays this year where Riley Mills gets driven off the ball. I've also watched game this year where Riley Mills absolutely manhandles whatever interior offensive lineman he goes up against. So, those you can kind of be splitting hairs. But when I look at a guy like Howard Cross and when he's playing at his best, he is a much more agile defensive lineman than what Riley Mills is because of the size difference, right? Howard Cross is 6'1", 288. So, for him, I think in the pass rush especially, Notre Dame's defensive line has been playing at their best when their interior defensive line can get a pass rush. And I think if this game comes down to if the edge rushers can get a pass rush on Rourke, I'd be a lot more comfortable if 56 or 99 in the middle was also generating one as well, right? So first one for me is going to be Howard Cross.
Yeah, I think it's pick an interior lineman, Trevor, for me. Mm-hmm. Pick one. Pick a D-tackle, any D-tackle, right. and hopefully more. And that's why for me, if I was going to talk about the D-tackles, it'd be the unit. It's got to be the Riley Mills one play, Howard Cross the next, Donovan Heinrich the next. I mean, holy moly, guess who stepped up on that first down with a big sack? It was Gabriel Rubio. It's like it's the unit as a whole has to be dominant in this game.
Yeah,
that's where and I'd say this. I mean, Xavier Watts is a stud, and the corners at times have been outstanding in the linebacker. But when this defense is really rolling, these interior guys are dominant. That's a big one.
Yep, absolutely. I was going back and forth on if I wanted to do the D tackle room as a whole or pick one specific one, and I just went with a specific player. But I couldn't agree with you more. That entire room, especially in the interior, is going to have to step up. Did you want me to give my second one, or did you want to give your?
I was going to lead you into your second one, buddy. All right, D tackle's got to step up. Trevor, who's your other game wrecker?
My other game wrecker is going to be Christian Gray.
Okay, cool.
And he's going to be tested in the secondary, especially, for him, it's a little bit of a rebound game. There's a common theme going on with my two game wreckers, right? You have Howard Cross, who hasn't played football in a month, and you have Christian Gray, who is coming off of, his worst performance in a Notre Dame uniform, right? At times, his highlight plays were highlight plays. That you talked earlier about, Notre Dame's pick sixes, and it's not like a lot of them were making plays on the ball. It was just right place, right time caused by the pressure. I think the one pick six this year that was just a really good play on the ball was Christian Gray's.
Well, I didn't mean to say that they weren't making plays on the ball. It's just the balls weren't great throws that they had to make great plays on because they were just – it was the pressure forced them into some of those plays. But
that's what I'm saying. The one –
was different.
Yeah, that was the one pick six that I can think of that wasn't mainly caused by the pressure.
Well, and two of his almost pick sixes, should have been pick sixes, were also great reads on the ball where he was playing confidently and comfortably. He knew what was happening. He wasn't overplaying. He was trusting his technique. He was trusting the system, and he was jumping routes. I mean, he almost had two pick sixes against Texas A&M for that reason.
Man.
But you're correct. You're correct.
But my second one is Christian Gray. He's looking for a bounce back game, and he's finally – I think this time off got him back fully healthy. I'm willing to chalk up the USC performance as a wash because you go back through and you look at what the kid did all season, and he had been pretty locked down, pretty reliable. Gave up some things against Virginia. Malachi Fields is a really good wide receiver.
He's really freaking good, yeah.
So I think Christian Gray is going to be the other one. I was thinking about somebody to hold it down in the secondary, and at this point, I was going back and forth between the two corners because they're going to have their hands full with Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt. But I think Christian Gray's kind of due for that. Hey, it's time to put USC
good
behind. I'm good. So Christian Gray's my other one.
I dig it. I think you're on that. The corners have to be a big part of this game. They have to play well. They do, because that's how a 3rd and 9 turns into a 25-yard gain is because your corners aren't trusting their technique. Right. Or we saw this against USC. You make a stop on 3rd down, penalty, pass interference because you didn't trust your technique.
Yep.
And those are things that they're going to have to do a much better, especially Christian, because I thought Leonard Moore played very well against USC. Christian's been the one that's been a little bit more inconsistent. When he's on, he's a dude. I mean, there was people talking about how he might be better than Benjamin Morrison in the first 3-4 games of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't necessarily agree, but I thought it was at least worthy of a debate. You know what I mean? So, I mean, those are all things that you look at and say, hey, man, you're going to have to be on top of your game. You didn't actually take any of mine because I had a feeling you were going to go with one of the D tackles, so I just assumed I was going to just not have them at the list. We talked about how important they are. I think the linebackers are super important. And I've been back and forth coming into yesterday's show when I was thinking about it of who I would go with because I think Drake Bowen could have a big impact in this game, shutting down the run. I could see Jaden Ausberry or Jalen Snead having huge plays on pass rushers. Maybe Jaden Ausberry making a big play in space. Like I feel like Jaden Ausberry is like due for stepping in front of a slide route for 6. Like you know what I mean? Like but I'm going Jack Kaiser, and I don't know what it is. But I just feel like this is a big Jack Kaiser's just going to have that monster you always remember game. I don't know what it is. I'm not betting my mortgage on it. I'm not doing it. But it's just like when I look at what Indiana does, they're going to go after him in the run game. They're going to go after him in the pass game. They're going to challenge Jack. And this is a kid who's given everything he has to this program. 6-year player, 4-year starter, captain on this football team. And this is that game where this kid wants to end his career with a win. And in order to do that in a month and a half or a month, you've got to get that one at home. Last home game of his career. That's also why I'm kind of looking at Riley Mills and Howard Crosses and Xavier Watts and those type of guys who I'll get to in a second. This is their last home game. I think you're going to get their best version of them. And because we're not doing the senior day stuff and there's not all that distraction of senior day, this is, hey, we're going to make our statement. We're going to make our mark. And that's a big part of why I went with Jack Kaiser. And it's also why I'm going with my next pick. But I think they're going to need Jack to play well because I think Jack is probably their most consistent second-level blitzer. And at times this year, I didn't think they used him all that well and effectively, but lately I think he's gotten a lot better at it. And I think he's going to be a guy that's going to have a chance to have a very big game for Notre Dame when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback, making plays behind the line, forcing them into mistakes. I just have a feeling that this is going to be a big Jack Kaiser game. I could be way off, Trev, but you know what I mean? Sometimes you just get those gut feelings. And you're just like, yeah, I think this is going to be a big game for this guy. I
love that
really
pick.
Big game, and I think Jack Kaiser's the one for me.
I love that pick.
There's another one, Trevor. You said it earlier in the show. Your dudes got to be dudes, and there is no bigger dude on the Notre Dame defense than Xavier Watts. I mean, he is your best player. They're going to go at him. They're going to probably beat him a couple times because they're a good pass offense. But this is those games where your best players have to be at their best. And this is another kid who's ending his career at Notre Dame Stadium. It's Friday night. This will be the last time he plays inside of Notre Dame Stadium. And he's such an important part of this defense. And for him, it's not even just what he does. It's making sure other guys are lined up, making sure other guys know where they need to be. It's that leadership aspect of it also. And then, the thing about Xavier that I love that makes him so special is not the production only. It's not the 12 picks. It's not the fact that no player in college football has had more interceptions the last 2 years. It's not that everybody except the idiotic Football Writers Association of America recognizes he's arguably the best safety in college football. It is that he is also clutch. He has his best games and some of the biggest moments. You know what I mean? And that's what I love about this kid is he's a clutch player, and he's never played in a bigger game than this one. And it's just very fitting for a guy like him to say, okay, I'm going to save my best for the biggest moment. And I think we're going to see that on Saturday, Trevor. I really think Xavier's primed to have a monster game. And they're going to need him to be a playmaker in this game. I mean, whether it's him making a play or him being where he's supposed to be and making a pick. You think of the interception he had against Louisville. Ball hits off the receiver's chest, and he's right there to grab it. I mean, that's what good players do. I mean, you're in position. You're not covering that guy. You're closing on that guy. You're squeezing off that zone, and when the ball's in the air, you go catch it. It's like there was a play like that against Michigan where they threw a ball, and it hit off the guy's hands, and the Michigan safety was squeezing down and not in his zone, and he misses the chance to go step in front of that ball. Xavier's always where he needs to be. And I think in this game, he is going to be that guy. I thought about going to the Don Schuler in this game, honestly, because I thought like, hey, they're not going to go at Xavier as much. They're going to try to test a Don. And so I thought about a Don as well, but I'm going with the veterans in this one for that reason.
I love that choice. I really do, because, you go back through and you look at the common theme. Look, the common theme for this season for Notre Dame has been the journey that this whole team has gone on, right? And the first home game of the season, what was the question? Where are the captains? Where are your veterans? Where were they to step up in those big moments? And I think it's almost a poetic ending that their final game in Notre Dame Stadium in a Notre Dame uniform would be for the Howard Crosses of the world, Riley Mills, Jack Kaiser, Xavier Watts, to be like, here we are. You know what I mean? That would be such a great way to end their home career at Notre Dame. So I love that.
Well, and who was the one guy that we said did play well in that game?
Yeah, Xavier Watts.
Xavier Watts. He was the only captain where you looked at and were like, where are your captains? And Xavier Watts is like, yeah, for real. I'm the only one. I mean, he would never do that, but right. And he was the one that the one guy that did step up in that situation, Trevor, and was there to play. And that's why I say, like, you just feel like there's no way that kid's not going to be at his best on Friday night. And that's why I went with him. But it wouldn't shock me if it is a Drake Bowen. It wouldn't shock me if it was a Jaden Osbury. It wouldn't shock me if it was an Adon Schuler, because that's kind of how this team has been all year. It's those young guys that really step up and have some of those big moments. But I just feel like in this moment, your veterans step up and dominate. So your two guys, the D tackles, right? I mean, I went with Jack Kaiser. I went with Xavier Watts. The only young guy that we picked was Christian Gray, and it made a lot of sense to have that. So, I mean, that's where you're going to be. You're going to need your best players to be well. And look, what also helps in games like this, Trevor, is when some guy that you're not expecting to be a game wrecker steps up and is a game wrecker. And when you think about guys like that, you think of like an RJ Oben finally earns his, reputation. The Junior Tuihalamaka, you're like, man, I don't know if the edge rush can do there. And then Junior just has the game of his life, or Josh Burnham has the game of his life, or, it's not Riley Mills or Howard Cross that has that big money third down sack that puts the game away. It's Donovan Heinisch. You know what I mean? It's not Xavier Watts who has that big interception to help put the game away. It's a Don Schuler. That's what happened against Texas A&M. Yeah. It was Don Schuler who had the big pick that set Notre Dame up for a score in that game. So, it's Christian Gray, as you talked about. You're going to need some of those guys that maybe people aren't expecting. Jordan Clark makes a huge play in this game. Maybe it's not the big name guys that step up for the Notre Dame offense. It's not Riley Leonard or Jeremiah Love, or maybe it's Chris Mitchell. Maybe it's Eli Raritan, not Mitchell Evans, right? Maybe it's Cooper Flanagan has a breakout game and not one. You need those complementary players also in these type of moments to step up and say, hey, I'm going to play my roles well. And so maybe one of those guys is your game wrecker in this game. It's going to be fun to watch, man. It's going to be fun to watch. You're going to have a great view of it. I'm going to have a great view of it. I can't wait for it. It's going to be, it's going to be big. It's going to be big. Can't wait. Can't wait. Before we get out of here, Trevor, we do have a few super chats. We have one from Evan Schneider. Evan was trying to get us to talk about the hat. I said, I'm not going to talk about the hat unless somebody gives us a big super chat, because I just don't, not the hat. I'm sorry. The uniforms, the Notre Dame uniforms for the game. And I said, I'm not doing that unless somebody gives us a big super chat. And we appreciate your 99-cent super chat, Evan, but it is not enough for us to talk about the uniforms. Jack Frencho, thank you. Thanks for your help this morning, Brian. You're welcome, Jack. That's what I'm here for, man. And we're glad to get you back on the board and get that figured out. And then, of course, Iden Benami with a super chat. Iden says, might have missed it, but is Jadon practicing right now? I believe he did start this week. I believe. But I don't know that with 100% certainty. But I believe he did start practicing this week. I'll ask about that, to be honest with you. And I didn't even look at it the other day when we were at the practice, to be honest with you. I was thinking about a million other things, and I didn't even think about the fact that Jadon was supposed to be out there. So my apologies. But that's it for the super chats. A reminder, tomorrow, Friday, we will be tailgating in Joy Slot. I don't know exactly where we're going to be just yet. But actually, we have another super chat that just popped up from my guy, Tyler Reese. Hey, Tyler, haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for super chat. What's the likelihood that Gabriel Rubio breaks out against the run game? I mean, he's been your most consistent run defender inside this year. Yeah. And so what's the likelihood? I mean, I think there's a chance. I hope he's locked in and focused on this game and what's happening in front of him now and not the future. But I wouldn't be shocked by it. I mean, you need him. I mean, he is your best run defender, in my opinion. He's your biggest guy. He's your strongest guy. I think there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. So, and they need him. I mean, Tyler, and that's kind of an example of what I was just talking about, like those complementary players. Who are the complementary players to step up? It's 3rd and 1, right? We talked about Pastors, 3rd and 1. And, they move the chains. They got a chance to go tight end, and boom, it's Gabriel that busts through and stuffs the running back at the line of scrimmage, right? That's what you need. And it wouldn't shock me if he has a big game against the run. Wouldn't shock me. He's had some pretty good moments before as well. Nita Beta with a super chat. Thank you, Nita. I'm excited about the uniforms. I wish I could be at the game. I mean, there's a lot of people that way, Nita, that want to be there. It's going to be such a great environment. It really is. I can't wait until, it's such a great campus on game day, Trev, but it's like, I'm curious what it's going to be like. It's a Friday. I've never been at a Friday night game at Notre Dame Stadium. I've never been at a playoff game at Notre Dame Stadium. Like, is it going to be just more electric than it normally is? Or is it just going to kind of be like sort of like the business type of thing that Notre Dame Stadium or Notre Dame has kind of turned into a little bit in recent years, where it's just not quite the same level of just energy that you maybe see at some other places? I think it's going to be a crazy environment.
I think it's going to be nuts. I mean, I'm going to sit back and count how many people I see that I know took a PTO day on Friday to make sure they're on that campus to tailgate, right? I mean, I am really, really excited to be up there, man, and to be a part of that environment. I've been a part of some fun ones, dude. Like, I mean, I'm 22 Clemson last year, USC. I mean, I was at the Ohio State game last year.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I have a feeling that this one.
I think the tailgate thing, not our tailgate per se, but I think there's going to be a ton of people tailgating that aren't going to the game. I think the tailgate scene is going to be crazy.
Oh, I know a lot of people that are tailgating that aren't going to the game. I mean, weather aside, it's going to be nuts.
Oh, I can't
It's going to be so much fun.
I can't wait. We're going to have a ton of food. I'm excited about that. Jim on Sports, my guy Jim. How about now for the uniform talk? Sorry, buddy. $2 ain't a big super chat. We appreciate you, Jim. I appreciate you very much, man. But, at the end of the day, I have a strong opinion on uniforms, but here's what I care about. I care about them winning this football game. That's ultimately what truly matters, right? That's a side talk. What matters is go out there and win the football game. But I appreciate you, Jim, very much. And it was good seeing you at Original Pancake House the other day. And I look forward to seeing you up in the press box on Friday night, my dude. So I appreciate you, man. But there you go, Trev. I mean, that's it, buddy. We're excited about it. We're excited about this game. We're going to be there. We're going to be tailgating in Joy Slot. I'll tweet out when we arrive what the poll we're by, but we'll be in Joy Slot. We will have the IB flag flying. We do have that now. I didn't think we had a pole last time, but my dad actually came through in the clutch, brought a pole, and so we were able to hook up the IB flag to the pole. So we'll have that flying. So if you're walking around, it's not super, super high, but it's high enough where you'll be able to see it. We'll probably start at around 1 or 2 on Saturday or on Friday, a little about round 1 or 2. Our goal is to try to get out here around 12:30ish and then get set up. So again, I'll tweet when we're on our way from the house. And if anybody shows up where we are and wants to help set up, we would greatly appreciate that also. Would mean a whole lot to us. So I'm excited about it. Lots of great food, great time, great conversation. And there's still a lot of y'all that I've never met yet. So, Trev, I got to remember to bring name tags. Maybe that might be your responsibility. Buy name tags so people can put their handles on there and then their real names on there. So that'd be a lot of fun. I always say I'm going to do that, but then game day comes and I forget. So, Trevor, that's on your to-do list.
All right, you got it.
Things to do. Get some name tags, a stack of name tags so people can know. So,
you got it.
So that's where we're at, man. So, hey, everybody have an awesome rest of your day. We have IB Nation Sports Talk tonight here in about an hour. Trevor and I will be back tomorrow. We're going to try to start around 1. We're going to try to start at 1. I'm not for sure that that's going to be the case. They're hanging some carpet, but I think we're going to be able to get started tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll do our keys to victory. We'll do our game predictions. Bill will join me at a little after 2 to talk about the other 3 playoff games. And then Friday, Trevor, no show because we're going to be tailgating all day, and then we're going to enjoy the game. So can't wait to see y'all on Friday. But before then, of course, we'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. The IB Nation Sports Talk guys will see you tonight at 5. Can't wait. Have an awesome rest of your day, everybody, and we'll talk to you again soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.